What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? How big would you play if you knew that you can survive any heartbreak, any breakdown, any betrayal? What would you do if the things that you were afraid of you knew were absolutely nothing? They were all opportunities for you to get stronger in your faith, stronger in your resiliency. What would you do? Who would you love? How big would you play? Where would you leap? And the bigger question is, how would the world benefit differently? How would the world benefit differently because who you've decided to be? How would the world be a better place to live because fear didn't have you standing on the edge? What would you do if you were told that you get to do it afraid? That you don't have to wait for the fear to leave? That when you get in action, the fear has to dissipate into the nothingness that it always was? What would you do? How would life be different? How would the world be a better place to live? I came to challenge you to play in the biggest field you've ever played in. I came for you to challenge the fear that might be inside of you and to redesign and reprogram it. You look at it long enough, you be with it intimately enough, and it has to dissipate. You are the designer of your destiny. You are the author of your autobiography. You write the story of your life. No one can write your financial story. No one can write your spiritual story. No one can write your emotional story but you. The pen has always been in your hand. The pen has always been in your hand. I say write a story that's going to be damn good to read. And when you do that, you will have to reprogram the fibers of your being. You will have to become someone you've never been before. You want to go somewhere you've never gone? You got to do something you've never done. You got to say something you've never said. You got to go to a place in you that you've never even been. You get to redesign. You are your Michelangelo. You are your greatest sculpture. And you get to recarve and you get to up-level as much as you need. You're not sentenced to this life this way. You chose it. Newsflash. You get to design it any way you choose. You're not sentenced to your future. You have an opportunity to your future. What do you want and how do you want it? And if it doesn't make you a little afraid, then you ain't playing big enough. Your knees are supposed to knock a little bit. Your teeth are supposed to chatter a little bit. There's supposed to be at least 2 butterflies in your stomach. At least. Because if not, you're playing inside your comfort zone. And we mistake the fact that we're supposed to be comfortable 24/7. Well, let me tell you something. Comfortable is equivalent to complacent. I'll choose inconvenience every day, any day, to make a difference on the planet. I don't mind being mildly to moderately to significantly inconvenienced to leave my fingerprint on this planet. So I just came to talk to the game changers and to the change agents who are willing to confront any part of you that's not speaking to your madly, wildly amazing future. Confront it. I came to talk to the change agents that are interested in evicting any fear that doesn't speak to your wild future. I came for that. I came for you to confront it, for you to get a little angry at it, for you to get a little pissed off at it. Say, wait a minute. I've been letting you drive me all this time, and you are a story that I made up about the future that doesn't even really exist. When you said I might get hurt in the next relationship, you made up a story about the future that doesn't even exist yet. And you're powerful, and any story you make up is true to you, but it's only true to you. And then you live out that story because you want to be right. You don't want to be wrong, you want to be right. So you make up a story, you project it in the future, and then you live it out until it's true. Like, see, I told you guys. I told you guys. You'll work really hard to make that story right. I just want you to know that. So I just stopped by to invite you to design a new story. I stopped by to remind you that the pen has always been in your hand, that no one else can write your story but you. And I don't know about you, but I want to write a story that when I get ready to sit down in my final years and there's nothing else I could do, that I go back and I just want to read my story. And I go, wow, I remember when I was afraid. And then I know on the next page, I jumped anyway. And then I read the next chapter and I go, whoa, that really scared the heck out of me. And I know what's going to happen on the next page. I did it anyway. God, I want to write a story full of leaping and running and jumping and serving and playing full out and falling and skinning my knees and scraping my face and hurting my heart. Because if that's the only way I can hurt and fall and scrape is to play full out, then I'll take the hurt. Because what I'm really afraid of and what you're really afraid of is getting to the end of your day, to the end of your life, and having something left to give.
To live a bulletproof life is to make the choice to keep your power and to not be in reaction to things that happen to us. To have a bulletproof life is to really be clear that it's your choice to react. It's your choice to give your power away. I never saw it that way. I never imagined that me being mad at somebody or me taking something personal or me being upset about something or me being stressed out, that I was giving my power away. We give our energy away when we get upset. And by learning some strategies to not give your energy away and keeping your power, then you're empowered. And then I say you have a bulletproof life. The first thing that's going to allow me to keep my power is my purpose. Living my purpose, knowing what my purpose is. And you have a purpose, and the purpose could be as simple as love. Which, by the way, Viktor Frankl in his book, and I recommend this book, Man's Search for Meaning, talks about that love is the most powerful purpose we can have. And so when you are grounded in your purpose, you can't be knocked down. Number 2 is responsibility. But we don't realize that responsibility is also interpretation.
Interpretation.
How I choose to interpret. I am responsible for my interpretation. For example, if my girlfriend breaks up with me, that's a fact. Where I go with that is an interpretation. If I go to, I can't trust women, I'm worthless, I'm not meant to be in a relationship, it wasn't designed this way, etc., those are interpretations. Or I could look at it from another interpretation. If I'm responsible, you know what? Her path has led her into that direction. I'm trusting that that's her choice. I respect her choice. I matter. I'm beautiful. I could still trust people.
Yeah.
This is going to make me stronger. This is an opportunity. This is a gift. You know, it's all how I choose to see it. And based on how you interpret, feelings follow. Then your body reacts to your feelings, and then you interpret that in a negative way. Feelings follow, body interpretation,
actions, yeah.
And all of a sudden you have a vicious cycle of reaction. You're in traffic. You could interpret it like you're stressed out, you hate traffic, you hate people, you become a monster. Some people change personalities in traffic. They start screaming, imagining people, swearing, and you're a heart attack waiting to happen. Because by reacting, what do? Give my power away, which takes me away from a bulletproof life. So when you take responsibility for how you interpret something and how you choose to see something, that shifts your energy, that shifts your joy, that shifts how you approach things.
Number 3,
trust the process. What you're going through is temporary, and that what's permanent is how you feel. What's permanent is your attitude. Even if it never changes, even if your health never changes, you could still be joyful. You could still be happy. You could still be blessed. And you have more of a probability of it shifting by shifting your attitude and by trusting the process. Because when you don't trust something, you resist it. And when you resist something, we talked about in the resistance episode, you give it the power, you give it the energy. You're giving energy to a negative situation. Fear is the expectation that the worst is going to happen. Faith is the knowing that everything is going to work out. Number 4 is confront whatever is stopping you from a bulletproof life. Don't avoid it. Don't be afraid to confront something. Confront means have the conversation you need to have. Whether it's with yourself, with your spouse, with the people around you, be willing to tell the truth. When you don't tell the truth, you're in resistance, you're choosing a negative interpretation, and you're not applying the prior principles. And one way to do that, tangible, look at your results. Look at your financial results.
Results don't lie.
Results don't lie. Look at the results you have in your friendships, in your relationship, the results with your health, your weight, your body, financial. Take inventory. And one way to take inventory, very simple. On a scale of 1 to 10, where's my health? Step 5 is integrity. We take our foot off the gas in keeping our agreements, keeping our word, keeping our promises. And the biggest thing I've noticed is that the more power people have, the more excuses and the more justifications they have to not honor their word. Integrity is about being whole and complete. It's about being one with what I communicate, what I do, and what I create.
Step 6.
It's expand your comfort zone. Challenging my limiting beliefs. Challenging the, I can't do that, I could never do that, that's too big for me. And there's something I read years ago from a friend of mine named Maria Marin, who's a Latina superstar. And she wrote a book called, If You Expect More, You'll Get More. And if you expect little, you get little. So number 1, purpose. Number 2, responsibility.
And interpretation.
Right. Number 3, trust the process. Number 4, confront. Number 5, integrity. Number 6, expand your comfort zone. And number 7, enthusiasm. Live life with passion and enthusiasm, and put passion into everything that you do. Enthusiasm in the breakdowns, enthusiasm in the breakthroughs, enthusiasm in everything that you do. And that enthusiasm is infectious, and that's contagious, and people want to be a part of it. I think that the first thing that goes out the window when we're in a breakdown or in a situation is our enthusiasm. Because our fear kicks in, and we start having dark conversations.
Can you think of anything that happened in your life that at the time it happened, you thought this is terrible? But you can now look back upon it and say, gee, that was actually pretty good. So if something happened to you in the past that at the time it happened, you thought was terrible, but you can now look back and say it was actually pretty good, why are you in a hurry to label anything that happens now bad? Is there any possible way in which in X years it could turn out to be pretty good? Just pausing to consider that question will take you to a different emotional domain. And if you then take the next step and say, is there anything I can do to make that happen? You move into a realm of possibility, and courses of action will open up to you that you never would have considered before. We, from a very young age, have been taught to set goals. And parents, teachers, coaches, all told us, set a goal for yourself and then come up with a plan of action to achieve your goal. All of the companies I work with have goals. In fact, most of the companies I work with no longer have goals. They have stretch goals. So we tend to live our lives in the following fashion. I set a goal for myself, I succeeded, life's a blast. I set a goal for myself, I failed, life sucks. We live in a sinusoidal curve oscillating between elation and despair, and we spend altogether too much time at the despair end of the spectrum. It's a terrible way to live. There is an alternative, and the alternative is the following: forget about the goal. Goals are important, but they are only important because they set direction. Once the direction has been set, forget about the goals. Don't even think about them. Instead, pour all of your emotional energy into what do I have to accomplish? What do I have to do in order to achieve my goal? And pour your emotional energy into that. When you do that, two things happen. You actually start enjoying the journey. The journey is the only thing we have. The destination is a mirage. You get there and then you're off someplace else. People want to climb Mount Everest. How much time do you spend on top of Mount Everest? A few minutes to a half hour at most. You climb up there, your buddy takes a picture of you, your buddy gets up there, you take a picture of him, and then you're on your way down, and you hope you don't get killed in an avalanche. So if you're going to climb Mount Everest, you better enjoy the weeks and months of acclimatization on Base Camp 1, Base Camp 2, and onwards. The journey is the only thing you have, and when you invest in the process, not the outcome, you enjoy the journey. And paradoxically, the more you are detached from the outcome, the higher the probability that you will actually reach the goal you wanted. And if you reach the goal, wonderful. If you do not reach the goal, wonderful. The mistake that all of us make, that all of us buy into, is that the benefit of this approach is then we will reach our goal. The reason we try very hard is so that we can reach our goals, and if we don't succeed, you know, we screwed up. It's terrible. False. Remember what I said earlier, you do not have control over the outcome. You never had control. You never will have control. The benefit of this approach is the advantage for you, the benefit you get is the growth that happens when you try your best to achieve the goal that you set for yourself. Whether or not you reach it really doesn't matter. You have already benefited from the growth that occurs in you as you go. That is what we miss out. It's not about achieving the goal. It's about how you develop as a person and grow as you try your level best. And you do that by investing in the process, not the outcome. Einstein said the most important decision you'll ever make is the universe friendly? Most of us believe that the universe is indifferent to us. It doesn't know we exist and couldn't care less. Some of the times it seems to be working for us. Some of the times it seems to be working against us. Some of the times it's actively working against us. So if we are driving and we're late for an appointment, it will arrange for a traffic jam and for our air conditioning to break down. But what if that wasn't true? What if the universe was actually benevolent? What if it not only knew you existed, but was well disposed towards you? Now, friends don't shaft friends, do they? No. So if it was a benevolent universe, it actively gives you exactly what you need for your growth. It may not be what you want, but it is exactly what you need. Just as if you're a small child, what you want is a tub of ice cream, and what your parents give you are fruits and vegetables. You don't want fruits and vegetables, you want ice cream. And it's only when you have a much greater maturity and understanding that you can say, thank God I got fruits and vegetables and not ice cream. What if the universe was like that? It gives you stuff, it's not what you wanted. You want to get promoted, you get a pink slip. But maybe what if this was exactly what you needed at this stage? Regardless of whether or not the universe is benevolent, if you believed the universe was benevolent, your life would improve dramatically. Now, just because you recognize that a model is intellectually superior doesn't necessarily mean that you can adopt it. But you can work towards it. And one of the quickest ways to find out if the universe is benevolent or not is look for evidence that it is. And the more you look, the more you will find. And eventually you will come to the point where you will tip over. And you will believe the universe is benevolent. And when you do that, you'll be living in a completely different emotional domain. So there was a young man who was growing up to take his place among the adults of the tribe. And the final rite of passage was a conversation with the medicine man. And the medicine man told him, here is this dog, loving, trustworthy, kind, intelligent. And here is this wolf, malevolent, vicious, cruel, ready to strike at anything. And the dog and the wolf are fighting. And the dog and the wolf are both inside you. And the brave asks, which one will win? And the medicine man says, whichever one you feed. Now think about that. This has a powerful lesson for us. Inside each one of us is an altruistic, let me help my fellow man and do what I can to make the world a better place. And inside each one of us are, let me grab everything I can for myself, and the devil take the hindmost impulses, and the two are always at war with each other. It is your job to selectively identify and feed the dog in you. Don't make the mistake of thinking you're only going to feed the dog. That ain't going to happen. The best you can hope for is that you'll feed the dog a little bit more than you feed the wolf. But when you do that and the dog becomes stronger, it's also your job to selectively identify and feed the dog in everybody you run into. And when the dog in you becomes friends with the dog in the other person, magic happens in your life and in the world.
I think that we're actually animals, that we have an animal nature, and that we have to become human. And we become human by overcoming some of these deep-rooted animal forces within us. These forces within us that we can't control, such as the fact that we can't control our own emotions, our own anger, our own frustration, or we feel envy, or we're caught up in the emotions of other people. I call those forces, primal forces, human nature. And they can create sort of negative patterns of behavior, the dark side of what we see in the news, etc. And we all have them ingrained in us, because with the way we evolved millions of years ago served a very definite purpose for our survival as a species. But the savannas of East Africa is not the offices in Silicon Valley or 21st century America. The world isn't the same. We are not built to adapt to this new technological environment we're in. We still have that lizard brain, those animal parts of our nature. So for instance, law number 1 is about how we're basically irrational creatures. We think that we're rational, but really our emotions govern us. We feel something before we ever have an idea or think it. We have to become rational through this process that I lay out in my book. So I don't mean to say that we're negative, because humans are obviously incredible. Look at what we've created. It's outrageous if you think about who we were millions of years ago and where we are now. We're obviously capable of incredible achievements. We're also the most brilliant social animal on the planet. We're capable of cooperating and working on teams to a level that no other animal has ever reached. So there's obviously another side to the story. But to become greater, to become truly human, we have to overcome these forces that I lay out. So for instance, we are built to constantly compare ourselves to other people. We're always thinking of what the other person has and how we are in relation to them. Are we getting as much attention as that other person? It started off when we were children. Are we getting more attention than our siblings from our parents? So we're continually comparing ourselves in rank, in power, in status to the people around us. And this is deep force within us, and it's constant every day, every moment. You don't realize it, but you're going through that. And social media, it completely exacerbates this tendency in human nature. Another is the contagiousness of emotions, which is extremely powerful. We tend to think of ourselves as autonomous human beings, that we're independent, that I feel affection or anger or frustration on my own. We don't realize how deeply we are affected by the emotions of the people in a group. This is the viral effects. Emotions are extremely contagious. Before the invention of language, we humans had to be able to communicate to one another through just picking up the moods of other people. And If there was a threat to our group or our tribe, the ability to feel fear and anger together bonded us and helped us survive. But that doesn't serve much function in the world today, where viral emotions can be very dangerous and we see a lot of that on social media. I'm really worried about people nowadays, but now my worry is that people are so immersed in their smartphones and their technology that they don't understand people. They're not observing people. And this has been documented in studies that young people, for instance, levels of self-absorption and narcissism have been growing steadily since the 1970s. We are the preeminent social animal on the planet. Our survival depends on how we relate to other people, whether we understand them on some level. And I find a lot of people are increasingly in the world are really bad at observing just basic elements in human psychology. The position I'm in now, I'm a consultant to a lot of very powerful, famous people. I'm not going to mention any names, but people fly me out to consult with CEOs, political people who are very powerful and even in other countries. And the number one problem I find that they have is an inability to understand the people they're dealing with. They hire the wrong partners. They hire the worst assistants who end up ruining their lives. These are people who are technically brilliant. They understand their field, they understand marketing, etc. But they don't understand basics about the people around them. And they make terrible hires, or they marry absolutely the wrong person for them in their lives. Their emotions, or their personal relationship bring them down. So this is like our Achilles heel, and I think it's gotten worse in the world today. So my anger was that people are so focused on technology, but that we need to focus much more on human nature, on understanding people. That's the primary skill that you need in life. There is something deeply ingrained in each individual person, a particular individual nature that we all have, and that causes us to go into compulsive patterns of behavior. I have this problem myself. I notice each time I write a book, I'm telling myself, I'm going to make this book short. I'm not going to ruin my health. I'm not going to do so much research. And every goddamn time I still go through the same process. I can't break this pattern. Okay? And everybody has them. Where does it come from? Some of it comes from our DNA, from our genetics, things we can't control that we've inherited from our parents. Some of it comes from our early attachments. And some of it comes as we get older and we interact with teachers and mentors and various people who create a certain way we view ourselves. If people keep telling us that we're not really worthy, that we're not good students, we internalize that and we end up becoming like that. So it's a mix of things. Each person has a mix of these qualities, and you have to kind of untangle the various strands. And you're right, what I'm saying is you're a mystery to yourself. You don't know who you are. You have patterns of behavior and you're not even understanding that. You don't know why you're angry. You think you're angry because that person said something mean to you or did something wrong. But in fact, your anger probably stems from things from deep, deep within, from your childhood. And you're not reacting to that person, but to actually your parents and what they didn't give you. The origin of wisdom, according to the Greeks, was know thyself, right? And I believe that very firmly, that knowledge about who you are is an end in itself and will help you in so many ways become that human being that I think we all have the potential to become. So I'm a great believer in baby steps, in learning how to do things on a daily basis. So normally when we feel an emotion or we have an idea, we don't examine it. We just assume that's it's just natural. We came up with that on our own. I want you every single day to be examining yourself and to look at yourself. Why do I have that idea? Why am I feeling this sudden emotion? And it's not easy. It can take time and it can take a degree of introspection that you're not comfortable with. But if you begin to look at yourself and question, why do I feel this way? And examine it and look at perhaps other sources of it, then you can begin this process of understanding, instead of just simply accepting that you feel or have this certain idea. So question yourself. Stop assuming that everything you do is so brilliant and smart and right. And imagine that maybe your ideas don't come from yourself. Maybe you're feeling some political anger or whatever comes from the fact that you're just assuming it from other people. You're following things on Facebook and you're getting swept up in some viral emotion. You want to think that you're completely independent and autonomous, but maybe you're not as independent as you think. I want to change how you look at people. Normally, everything is personal. Oh, they said that. Oh, they don't like me. Oh, he likes me. I'm not getting attention. Cut that off. I want you to look at people as facts of nature, as things that, like a rock or a stone or a plant. This is who they are. And I want you to observe them and accept them for who they are and deal with them as individuals. You will be free of all that emotional baggage that you carry when you take everything so personally. I think altering your perspective, how you look at people, will have a radical influence on all aspects of your life. None of us see the world in the same way. So you and I could go watch a movie. It's the same movie that we're watching. I love it, I see something, you hate it, you see something else. You don't experience it the same way. We're watching the same world, the same reality, but we experience it differently. Everybody you meet is experiencing their world differently than you are. So you have an attitude that colors what you see. And some people have an attitude that tends towards the negative. And I describe a negative attitude as something that's closed. So you're not open to new experience. You're trying to close that lens. You have certain beliefs, certain ideas about life, and you're not willing to change them, right? Because that gives you a sense of security. And so you want an attitude that's expansive, where you accept people, you're not always judging them, you're not negative about them, you understand that people can't necessarily help who they are. You're open to change, you're open to having adventure, and that kind of attitude kind of gives you a certain degree of freedom, so that the worst thing can happen to you and you're able to transform that into something good. If we have a setback or a failure in life, which is inevitable, do we do one of two things? Do we analyze ourselves and see what we did wrong and how we could change ourselves? Or do we immediately look outward and blame other people? That person screwed me. Society doesn't like me. Because of these circumstances, I'm screwed and I can never help it. It's the world, it's not me. That's a self-sabotaging pattern of behavior. Because if you're always pointing fingers at other people and blaming them, you're never going to learn from your experiences. And you're going to end up being quite bitter. So that's probably one of the main sources of a self-sabotaging. So we're not in charge of everything that happens in life. There are circumstances that are beyond our control, right? But a lot of what does happen to us is something that we do, that we are responsible for. There are amazing studies about the role of attitude and what happens to you in life. So they have this thing called the Pygmalion effect. Teachers who treat a student as if they are smart and going to do well, those students end up doing well, right? So how you treat people, how you think about yourself has a great impact on what happens to you. When doctors prescribe a new medication, there's always the same trend that when a new medication has been invented, the success rate is like 80% because people believe in it because it's new. And then like 2 years later, it starts going down because it's not, It's a placebo effect. So if you believe something is going to work, if you believe that you are great and you deserve good things, that you are a good student, you will end up making those things happen. So how you look at yourself will often determine what ends up happening to yourself. So if you're talking about what causes self-sabotage, if you go through life thinking, God, I'm not really that good, there's something wrong with me. I don't really deserve good things. I don't deserve to have a lot of success or to have a lot of money. People read that off of you. A major theme in this book is that we are masters at reading people's body language and nonverbal behavior. So when somebody feels that they don't deserve things, it's kind of an off-putting quality in them, and it pushes people away. So you create self-fulfilling dynamics by how you look at yourself and your attitude. So your attitude and how you think about yourself sort of determine how people treat you and what happens in life.
There are two kinds of wounds. There's the wound that makes you think you're less than others, and there's the wound that makes you think you're better than others. And the less than others, at least they know they have something to work toward or learn. The ones who are there have nothing to learn, and it's like the biggest tragedy because they just live their lives in the dark, thinking everything they do is great and ignoring all the results. And also, just learning from your experiences that doing something and failing and letting that be a learning lesson. So letting the failure be a learning lesson. Okay, I'm doing something wrong. Humility is the most important thing you can have for change. If you really want to have a big change. Like a lot of people come just to hear what they already want to hear. Like codify this into 5 principles I can then apply to my life. But humility to recognize, what got you here won't get you there, as the saying goes, right? And to say at some point, if you really want to change and are really stuck, I know nothing. I'm letting go of everything. And I'm sort of gonna relearn as with a childlike mind.
Action is the antidote for despair. Action is the prescription for success. How can you have one word, one theory be the antidote for something while being the prescription for another? That's a powerful something. Action. Will Smith said it when he was being interviewed by Tavis Smiley. I'm gonna work harder than the next guy. If I'm on a treadmill, I'm gonna die on a treadmill. Because no one wants to live in uncertainty and ambiguity, and we live a life of ambiguity. I don't know what I want to be. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Because you never have to move in ambiguity. Instead, just say, I'm afraid to leap. Help me leap. Help me leap. Help me get the courage to leap. Because I don't want to live a life on the edge. Just say that.
It's funny, there are all these books about happiness, right? I think 10% Happy, or all these books about happiness. And there's a problem, I think, with that goal of reaching for happiness, which is you've got other emotions, right? Sometimes you're gonna be sad, sometimes you're gonna have anxiety, sometimes you're gonna have fear. Like we have many emotions. And if you feel like I need to be happy all the time, when you're not happy, you're gonna feel like something's off. But what I think of it is this: you're born pure and fresh and vulnerable and spontaneous and in the moment, and slowly through life experiences and your caregivers, you get loaded with a lot of baggage. And I think one of the goals of life is how much of that baggage can you cut away before you leave this planet. We're running on this operating system, and we're all running on this operating system. This operating system was programmed in our first years of life. We're born without the architecture, and the architecture is built by our childhood experiences. Sure. So all these connections are made whereby I think a child makes 700 new neural connections a second. So a 3-year-old has twice as many neural connections as we do. And then as you grow up, as new ones are forming, there's a process called pruning, so the ones you don't use go away. So your brain is really shaped and built by what you're seeing with your caregivers growing up. Like, basically, my friend, he would tell me over and over, you got everything you wanted in the game, why are you still unhappy? Why your relationship's not working. He would have these conversations with me till he was blue in the face. And I would just fight against him. I'd push back. I'd tell him all the reasons why he was wrong. I'd text him why he's wrong, because I'd think of counter arguments later. And it was I was arguing against my own growth, because the things I found the thing I was the most resistant to was what I needed the most. So it's hard. It's so hard to see yourself. And we also have a psychological investment in remaining the same. So it's like you have a friend, you're always trying to maybe cheer them up because they're depressed, or help them with their self-esteem because they're down, but you'll find they will fight. People will psychologically fight to hold on to their story because it's all they have.
Can you give yourself permission to live in the duality of your imperfections and your smallness and what you're learning and what you still have to learn, and your greatness and your brilliance and your light? Can you allow them to coexist and then serve them up to the world? To love you, to see you, to inhale you, to judge you, to leave you, to love you. Some of us are just as afraid of being loved as we are to be left. Can you give the world permission to leave you and love you?
I'm going to be talking about how to be unfuckwithable. All of us, as we grow up, through the conditioning of our parents, of our society, of media, we develop these holes within our being. And unfuckwithable is really about going from these holes to being whole. So unfuckwithability is basically this: extraordinary minds do not need to seek validation from outside opinions or through the attainment of goals. Instead, They are truly at peace with themselves and the world around them. They live fearlessly, immune to criticism or praise, and fueled by their own inner happiness and self-love. Now, the reason we need to be unfuckwithable is because without this ability, we don't have the skills, the invincibility, the power to go out there and truly pursue life-transforming goals. If we care what other people think of us, good or bad, we limit our abilities. We fear, for example, I did not write my book for many years because I feared what people would think. What if the book sucks? Oh my God, if the book sucks, would people really continue buying Mind Valley products? I did not get on stage for many years because I thought, well, what if nobody claps? I remember in college, I never asked a girl I liked out for many years because I was afraid of rejection. Heck, it took me 2 years to ask my wife out because I was afraid of rejection. And so all of us go through this. This is what causes us to want to dress up in a certain way, to get that six-pack because apparently it means something, to buy certain cars or things or vehicles just so we can compensate for whatever we might find lacking. But the problem with this type of attitude is that the fear limits us. It limits us from really doing epic things, because to do something big, you got to be prepared for rejection. You got to be prepared for failure. And the bravest people in the world are able to do the incredible things they do because these things do not represent them. The attainment of the goal, the accomplishment, the object, the man or the woman are just nice to haves, but they say nothing about who you are. But what I found over the years is that there are 3 ways to get to this state of unfuckwithable. To get to this state where, when someone compliments you, you're good with that, but you don't need that compliment. If you give a speech and nobody gives you a standing ovation, you're cool with that. It's not you. It's maybe the speech, or it's something you said, or maybe it's the method that you use, and you're like, okay, great. I can hack that method. I can improve this way. I can rethink how I give a speech. But it's not you. Too many people make it about themselves, and this is what causes the limitation in how they grow. Forgiveness is about facing your past. It's about looking at the shit that happened to you in the past and being able to heal that so that you can move on. Now you're unattached to your past. It's about writing a new future for yourself where you are enough so you can go out there and not give a damn about criticism or judgment or how people think about you. Now, this means that you can do what needs to be done to fulfill your mission in life without fearing other people's opinion. You can accept praise, that's good, but you don't need the praise. You can look at criticism and just see it as a simple way to improve without seeing that criticism as a wound into your own soul. So you have the past, you have the future. And if you apply these in your life, people, everything changes. These models have helped me make the last year among the most successful years of my life. But notice how simple they are. You do not have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars learning them. In fact, the illusion is their simplicity. It is simple to forgive. It doesn't happen overnight. But with practice, as I've shared in my stories, you can forgive even the most vile crimes that have happened to you. And it's directly within yourself. You forgive. People think you need to get the other person to forgive you. No, it's within your own power to forgive. It is a choice you can make. You can feel enough. No one can do that to you, but you can hack your brain through the right techniques to train your brain to make you be enough. All of us are born as kids feeling enough. Society is what pokes the holes into us, but you can reverse that with the right technique, and it can happen incredibly fast. And the third one is simply be present. You can do that. You can do it right now. You can do it over lunch. You can do it on the cruise today. It is that easy. And when you do this, welcome to unfuckwithability.